How's it going? Coach Paul here, back with another Chalk Talk. A few months ago, we talked about holdback athletes or students. And what is a holdback? That means when you repeat a grade level. So, I've been getting a lot of questions in regards to this topic. So I figure I'll revisit this and maybe give a little better insight to this. So a lot of times, there's a negative connotation, especially, if you have an educator's background, just so we're on the same page. Um, I've been an educator for over 6 years in the Department of Education. My background, I've been a trainer for 25 plus years, and it's just compiling everything, just going from, where sports was back then, in our days of playing, and then where it's at now. There's just a lot going on now, and parents have a lot of questions. So, when it comes to the hold back, already you look at that phrase hold back, it's almost like a negative term. So automatically, especially with educators, we think student first, right? Because student comes first before the athlete. Understood. So, what it is we look at it in ways, or educators look at it in ways where, we say all you're thinking about is their sports and not their education. Or, the student might be lazy, not smart enough, can't get the work done, etc. So, I think that's just not a good way of looking at it. If you do, it just depends on the situation, on how you do your holdback. So here's what not I would do, just coming from an educator side, is when parents hold their kids back a grade level in a homeschool setting. All right, like that might not be the best ideal way to do your holdback, especially when it's an online homeschool program, right? It's some say they're accredited. I've seen scenarios where credits don't transfer, and then they end up in bad situations where they can't, they have to take extra classes or they can't get into college. So, looking into an online approach could be risky. It's just pending, again, finding the right program. The second scenario, to homeschool, is the parent really home to homeschool, meaning making sure the student is, or the student athlete is, doing their work online, because becomes a responsibility of doing the work independently for the most part. So, and then if they have further questions, yes, they have online support, they have all these things, but I think every student learns different, right? So like, I'm a very visual learner. I like to be in front and center in front of it live. I've done, online courses, trying to get my master's degree in teaching at one point, and I failed miserably, because I just wasn't an online type of student. I needed to be in class, front and center with the teacher, just very visual learning right in front of me where I can ask questions, etc. So, when you do the holdback situation in that aspect, is your student athlete really getting what they need academically? So, I think that's not the best approach. I know it's probably the most affordable approach, because I know in the state of Hawaii, to hold back in a public school setting most likely won't happen. It's because you need the sign off from the principal, the VP, the counselor, the teachers. So, it's a team effort where it's probably not going to be allowed, because it has to be an academic reason. All right. Meaning maybe their reading isn't up to par. They're not up to grade level. I think it's a very bad scenario for a public school to hold back a child if there's no good reason. So, that's not the option. So what's the other option? Is you attend a private school setting, which most schools are very expensive, just to do the holdback. So can parents really afford to go that route? Most parents can't. So what do? They homeschool approach the holdback. Okay, so that would be not the best scenario, because now if we do the homeschool approach, Again, I explained two reasons on why it's not so good. But here's another thing: even within the academics, are they really getting what they need to progress and move forward? All right. Again, it's student before athlete, so we have to make sure that the academics are getting taken care of, just as much as the physical aspect for their sport. So, um, so the best approach, you even have some programs, out of state, like in Las Vegas or in California, where they have these athlete, sports academies. Again, majority of them are online programs, which is maybe better than just the homeschool approach at home, but it's almost the same. So making sure that those programs also have the accreditations, within the athletics. So again, now if you go in an approach where it makes sense academically first on the holdback, right? There's a lot of good benefits actually towards this. And here myself, for example, when I graduated high school, I was actually still 17 years old. So I entered college, my freshman year of college, at the age of 17. So there's a couple scenarios here, right? I didn't turn 18 until I was in my first year of college. So technically, I probably started school earlier. My parents probably put me into school a little earlier, like when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I do have a little late birthday. So technically, either I could have started school 1 year later, or if we had the option back then, it wasn't a thing to hold back. Technically, I could. So, the rule of thumb is this: number one, when you do a holdback, you have to make sure that you're 18 years old in the state of Hawaii during your senior year of football season. You cannot be 19 years old playing, football in Hawaii. So that's number one. You have to do the math to make sure your student athlete is 18 years old in their senior season of football. So I was 17 years old going into college. So a couple of things with this scenario. I did pretty well. When I played in high school, I did get offers to college. I did play in college, but here's the thing. Number one, I was 17 years old. I wasn't even of age of being an adult of 18 years old, having to make, adult decisions on my own, in college. Secondly, I couldn't even sign off on my own paperwork because I was not an adult yet. So, anything signed had to go through my parents at first. Secondly, physically, I didn't really progress. Like, we didn't have training programs like we have today, with trainers like ourselves, with Phase One and other trainers. Pretty much we did everything on our own. So physically, I didn't really become more athletic until after my freshman year in college. And, when I look back at it now, I didn't know it then, but I look back at it now, it's probably because, I was behind, at least in age, physically. So could it have helped me? I think so, because again, I noticed a huge difference in my athleticism after my freshman year in college. And I just got much more athletic from that point on in every which way. So my strength, in my speed, in how I moved on the field, everything was just different after my freshman year. So that's me an example number one on not having the hold back, and me being 17 years old going into college. So then you have my oldest son, who's 24 now. He was actually held back, but not later like most people do it now in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It was actually in the 1st grade. He was held back because of his reading. For whatever reason, they felt that having that extra year would be best for him. And then, so he repeated 1st grade, excelled, tremendously in that 1st year. And, his reading got up to par, actually became borderline genius in math. And, the rest is history. But for his athletics, by his senior season, he was much more athletic. I don't know if it's because the holdback, but in the 1st grade, it wasn't intentional for sports. But he did run faster and jump higher and was more explosive than most kids on the field, along with our program. So physically, did it help him? Yes. In his education, did it help him? Yes. So you might even be saying to yourself, well, my son or daughter doesn't have issues, with their academics at an early age. Well, how about we look at it this way? The holdback can actually not only help physically, like 100%, I've seen athletes out there where they were undersized, great athletes. And, hopefully I can get testimonies from these athletes very soon. But great athletes got, parents were worried, we're training them from the 6th grade, and parents like, oh man, I hope they grow, I hope they get taller. And, I know particularly of one athlete was a great quarterback. That was the biggest concern. Like, is he going to get tall enough? And COVID happened, the online approach again, during those times, he struggled with school because of that, because he was like me, where he needed to be front and center learning, from his teachers in class. Struggled, ended up failing in the middle school. He got held back in his 8th grade year in a public school. But it was because literally he was falling behind. He got held back. Man, that one holdback year, he ended up growing enough to get a full ride scholarship in a D1 football program. So is it beneficial? Absolutely. Now, so we talked about physical, right? Physical, definitely you can get bigger, stronger, faster. But the question is, what are you doing again? If you're going to hold back the 1 year, are you just expecting him to get, he or her getting taller? What programs are they doing at home? What training programs are they doing, right? Because that's a whole nother conversation, but you also have to do the right training for an athlete in order to get them better physically, not just depend on them growing and still doing the same thing over and over, which is just playing in their sport. So it matters also on the whole back. What are they doing to benefit themselves physically with a trainer or some type of program where they're taking full advantage of that extra year? Now, academically, if you think about this, now if you do it right and you're in an academic program that's credentialed, college preparatory, the whole nine, now you're making sure that they're getting into their academics to where they're not going to do the same type of work or less on an online program, where they're actually going to progress in their academics during that year. So here's an example. Hold back, making sure they're taking the proper courses needed, up to par with their academics, so they're progressing. Now they're taking, by the time they get to high school, if they do this properly, now they're taking all their college prep classes. So if you think about it, in a four-year college, where you're doing your first 2 years of basically your liberal arts, it's like doing all your high school stuff again. And then you take 2 years to get your bachelor's, right? So that's your 4 years if you're on track. If you were to take these extra AP classes in high school, which if you're going forward in your middle school holdback, by the time you get to high school, you're taking all these extra, liberal arts classes for college. I've seen students get their associate's degree within their first year. I've seen them get their bachelor's degree within the first 2 years because they knocked out all their liberal arts college courses when they were in high school. So again, it's just doing it right if you're going to do it. Okay. Now we have an option, right? So for us now, here's what it is. We're finally launching our sports academy here in Hawaii. ARA Excel Sports Academy, all right, this fall. So here's what it's going to look like. 6:30 a.m. drop off, right, or start. We get into training first thing in the morning. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. we have our academics. Now within the academics program, American Renaissance Academy is a college preparatory academics accredited school. So what we're going to focus on is the 4 main topics, right, that they absolutely need. So math, language, science, and history. So 4 hours a day, 8 to 12 12 to 12:30 lunch, 12:30 to 2:30 we're back training again. This is 5 days a week in school. All right, this is a perfect scenario for not only the athletes that are not going to do a holdback situation, but if you are going to do a holdback situation, let's hold back to move forward. And the way we do that is you're getting the proper training every day in school. You're getting the mindset training as well. You're getting the college preparatory academics, everything an athlete needs to not only become the best athlete they can be, but also be the best, leaders in our community. So that's the goal at the end of the day. Now, in hindsight, we're totally setting them up for college in the middle school. Now, this is geared towards 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So rather if they're doing the holdback or not, just with this possible schedule alone, if you look at this, like I was 17 going into college. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what college looked like. And, what I learned real quick is this is what the college schedule looked like. And you gotta think about it in this today's age and society with this generation of athletes, young athletes. Are they really ready for what college brings to the table? So if they're young going into college, like I was, you're waking up at 5 a.m. to get to workouts, early morning workouts at 6 a.m. We get done with morning workouts. Usually school, you go to your classes anywhere between 8 to 2:30. All right. So you knock out all your schoolwork. You have some time for lunch in between that. From there, you have to go to the trainer's room. You go to the trainer's room, you get prepped like about 2:30, 3 o'clock. You get prepped for practice. Now you go into meetings, you have position meetings, you have offense or defense meetings, whatever the case is. By 4 o'clock, 4:30, we get on the field or the court. You go to practice. You get done at about 6:30 p.m. Once you're done with that, you shower up, you go get some dinner till about 7:30, you got to report. And this is for sure mandatory for freshmen in college. 7:30, you have to go to study hall and work with a tutor till about 9 p.m., 8:30, 9 p.m. When you're done with that, now you have some time to go and do more of your homework, maybe study your plays if you're a good athlete, student athlete. Then you're going to bed at like 11 p.m. Guess what? You got to wake up, do that again on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 days a week. Very demanding schedule. So what we want to do is make sure we give you the best scenario for a holdback situation. All right. Now we're going to have an open house at American Renaissance Academy this Wednesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. to give you all the information and tools you need to make the best decision for your athletes. So with that said, you can go to our website, www.p1hawaii.com. But furthermore, to get RSVP to our open house for ARA Excel Sports Academy at www.arahawaii.org. RSVP ASAP, limited spots available. Contact us if you have any more questions in regard to this. Take care. God bless. Peace.